So, absolutely massive developments now in our war with Iran. But now President Trump has basically said this war with Iran will be over. We will be leaving that region and the conflict. 2 to 3 weeks, absolute maximum. He is now done with the war. Okay, let me tell you exactly what is now taking place. President Trump now has told his aides, and they have now leaked to the media, that the president now believes that it is up to the Europeans and to the Gulf nations, the Persian Gulf nations, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. As you know, the Iranians have blocked the strait as a retaliation for the bombing campaign led by our country and Israel. And now the ships, most of them are not getting through. Oil tankers, fertilizer is not getting through. And this has now led to massive oil shocks across the world. The price of oil and gas has gone up dramatically. Price of fertilizer has gone up dramatically. You need that for food, making food becoming much more expensive around the world. The fear now is if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed for another couple months, it will trigger a global recession. And a global recession will affect our economy here. And so President Trump now does not want to reopen the Strait of Hormuz unless our European allies and other Gulf nations pony up, send their warships, send their experts, send some of their troops to clear the passageway. And so he has now told aides, I'm done. This war, for his purposes, is effectively over. There will be no regime change. In fact, he's claiming there already has been a regime change, and I'll get to this in a second. But the mullahs will remain intact. The regime will remain intact. And he now essentially wants to continue to finish degrading and destroying Iran's nuclear program, their missile stocks, continue to wipe out what is left of their navy and what is left of their air force, which is almost nothing, and then in about 2 to 3 weeks declare victory and go home. He now says it is up to the Europeans to clear the Strait of Hormuz. Furthermore, he now says that he's going to stick to his timeline. He does not want the war to go on for more than 2 to 3 weeks. Why? Because he believes that now it is going to hurt him badly in the midterms. He believes now that the price of oil, the price of gas, inflation is hurting him in the polls. It's hurting the economy here at home. Obviously, I mean, gas is now over $4 a gallon. Nationally, in some places, it's $5, $6 a gallon. And so Trump now believes that the Democrats will campaign on the high cost of gas and energy, and they will absolutely crucify him in the midterms. And so he's now telling his aides, we have to now get out of this conflict and pivot to the economy. On top of everything else that is now going on, Trump now has given an interview to the Daily Telegraph in which he now says he is seriously considering, in fact, beyond seriously considering, pulling the United States completely out of NATO. And the reason is that you have European countries. Italy was now the latest yesterday. In a shock development, the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, came out and said the United States will not be allowed to use Italian military bases for U.S. planes and fighter jets to conduct missions in Operation Epic Fury. They are joining Spain and other European countries, the French, the Brits, the Germans. None of them want to help us with clearing the Strait of Hormuz or to allow their bases to be used for us to bomb or target Iran. And so President Trump came out in an interview with the Telegraph saying that this relationship with NATO is becoming a one-way street. We were there for Europe on Ukraine. We didn't ask for the war in Ukraine. We didn't ask for this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It affected Europe primarily, not us. But we sent hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars and provided all kinds of assistance, much more than what the Europeans contributed. And so Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has now come out and said, when this war is over in 2 to 3 weeks, the United States will reassess our relationship with NATO. And now there is growing pressure within the administration for us to just leave NATO completely. Trump now says NATO is a paper tiger. The Europeans contribute little to defense. And what it really has now become is that the United States just protects Europe on our dime, our cost, our taxpayer dollars, our men and women, our blood and treasure. And Trump says this is not a sustainable relationship. It's a parasitical relationship. It's a one-way relationship. And he says he's done. He's done with the Europeans, and I agree with him. I completely agree with him. As I said on X, we have been protecting Italy now. And it's not just Italy. It's Spain. It's France. It's Poland. It's Germany. It's England. I could go on and on. We have paid over $22 trillion over the years, decades and decades and decades. $22 trillion. You know what $22 trillion is? That's an unimaginable amount of money to protect every country in Europe going back decades. We bailed them out in World War I. We bailed them out in World War II. We protected them from the Soviet Union during the Cold War. We've now basically protected them since the end of the Cold War for the last 30 years. And they can't allow us to use a couple of military bases? Or they can't send in a warship or two or a couple of minesweepers to help with the clearing of the Strait of Hormuz, which, by the way, as Trump rightly points out, we get less than 2% of our oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Most of the oil that goes through that strait that is now currently blocked primarily goes to Asia and then secondarily to Europe. We don't even use the oil, or very little. And we've got to do the heavy lifting. We have to risk our soldiers, our sailors, our ships, always on our dime. No. Enough. They've been a bunch of ingrates for decades, and they've been free riding us and freeloading off of us for 40, 50, 60 years. And President Trump now says this relationship is fundamentally now over. Listen now to President Trump saying, when asked, does Iran have to make a deal for the United States to end its operation in Iran? Now, it's a very testy reporter, an arrogant reporter, so he and Trump go back a little bit. But basically, Trump is saying, no, I don't even need a deal. They don't want to sign the 15-point plan I sent them? No problem. Because he believes now we have effectively militarily won the war. And if the mullahs want to stay, let them stay. If the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, let it be closed. It will no longer be our problem. It shouldn't be our problem. Roll cut 1, Mike.
Does Iran have to make a deal for the U.S. to end its operation in Iran? And
No.
Have you spoken,
No.
and
Iran
have you
doesn't
spoken
have to.
directly?
Iran doesn't have to make a deal. No. Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people. It's a new regime. They are much more accessible. They are right. You know, they said, we have a present for you, Mr. President, out of respect. And they said, wait a minute, you wanted me to answer the question. You're a fresh person. You know, we've had a lot of problems with you, haven't we? No, they don't. You ask me a question. No, they don't have to make a deal with me. When we feel that they are, for a long period of time, put into the Stone Ages, and they won't be able to come up with a nuclear weapon, then you have a deal or not. It's irrelevant.
So basically what he's now saying is they're going to continue bombing for about another 2 weeks. They want to finish off certain other targets, hit some other sites, and essentially, as Trump said in his interview with the Daily Telegraph and now with other media outlets, this means that Iran will not be able to have a bomb, he believes, for 15 years. So he says, I've solved the issue for our generation. They will not be able to have a nuke, at least for the next 15 years. And once that is completed, once the complete nuclear program... Okay, President Trump will be addressing the nation tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. All the networks have given him, I guess, 10, 15 minutes. He will be speaking to the entire country about the war in Iran. And this is what he's expected to now tell the country, that we've achieved most of our military objectives regarding Iran's nuclear program, regarding their ballistic program, that we have essentially now destroyed their Navy, their Air Force, their air defenses. We have so degraded their nuclear capabilities that Trump believes now that the nuclear threat has been handled for at least about 15 years. That it will take them 15 years, he believes, to rebuild or reconstitute anything resembling a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb, or a nuclear weapon capability. And that he will now tell the world that he will not open up, or the United States will not open up the Strait of Hormuz, that it will remain blocked, which means oil is going to remain high for a while. Gas prices are going to remain high for a while, and that he expects the Europeans, the Asians, and the Gulf nations to come in there and clear the strait. He believes it's in their interest to do so because most of the oil goes through that passageway for those countries. We get very little oil that comes in through the Strait of Hormuz. It's mostly the Asians and the Europeans. And that he expects them to take care of it when they're ready to take care of it. Now, he says also that, and I'll play you the cut, but he's going to say it tonight, that the war will end. He guarantees it in 2 to 3 weeks. He is sticking to his timeline. He is not going to budge. And so they want to finish hitting some more targets, continue to utterly destroy and obliterate what remains of their nuclear program, their ballistic program. And then, as far as he's concerned, the war has achieved its goals, and he is now going to call the troops back home, send all the forces back, and he will declare victory, and he then wants to focus on domestic issues all the way until November. Listen now to President Trump yesterday saying that I don't need a deal. They rejected my 15-point plan, which is fine. They don't want it. That's okay. As far as I'm concerned, as long as they can't have a nuclear weapon, then we've won. We've achieved the goal and the objective of Operation Epic Fury. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
Now, it's possible that we'll have a deal because they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal more than I want to make a deal. But in a fairly short period of time, we'll be finished. They will not be able to do a nuclear weapon for years. And when they are ready, maybe in a long time from now, able to do a nuclear weapon, you'll have a president that will be like me and that he will go there and he'll knock the hell out of them again because they cannot have a nuclear weapon. They are very radicalized people. They're very sick leaderships. And I will say, though, that the leadership we're dealing with now, with the new regime, because we have a new regime, and the new regime is much better than the...
So basically what he's saying is I've solved it for 10, 15 years, and we've pushed a nuclear issue. We've taken care of it into the foreseeable future, and the ballistic missiles into the foreseeable future. And in in 2-3 administrations from now, if the mullahs rear their ugly head again, they will have to take care of it. Number one. Number two, he's now claiming that there's a new regime in Iran. And I know what he means by that. He believes this leadership is maybe not as radical or as militant or as extremist as it was under the previous Ayatollah. And so that he's taken out most of the senior leadership. And so effectively, he's done regime change without doing regime change. This is, by the way, he's making this argument now repeatedly, and so is Pete Hegseth. Now, he then comes out and says 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops, and it's over. We are going to leave Iran or that area, and we are going to end the war. Roll cut 2, Mike.
I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3. We're hitting them very hard. Last night we knocked out tremendous amounts of missile-making facilities. As you probably read or wrote, we knocked out. Excuse me?
Pardon me for interrupting. The U.S. will be gone or done with the war in 2
I think with 2 or 3 weeks.
Not 3 weeks. If it is,
we'll leave because there's no reason for us to do this.
So we're leaving, and that's what he's going to tell the country tonight. Everyone's expecting him to tell the country tonight in his address to the country on national TV. Okay, let me just say a couple things, and then I want to go to the phone lines. Number one, I don't believe this is regime change. The IRGC is still in power. The Basij are still in power. The Ayatollah's son may be wounded, but he's still there as the figurehead. And you still have key people from the previous regime still calling the shots. So they may be a little bit more pragmatic, okay. They may not be as completely crazy and fanatical, okay. But this is not a new regime. I'm sorry, that's just not true. I don't believe it. So I think Trump's making a mistake by pushing that line. Secondly, he's leaving the mullahs in power. He is. And he's now saying that another president is going to have to deal with this in 15 to 20 years. Okay, like I said, huge developments over the last 24 to 48 hours. President Trump will be speaking to the nation, a nationally televised address from the Oval Office at 9 p.m. He is now going to tell us the war will end no matter what in 2 to 3 weeks. He's going to stick to that timeline. And now he is very seriously considering not reopening the Strait of Hormuz, to declare victory and leave it up to other countries to clean up the mess. One of the problems with that is that Iran now will be tightening its grip over the Strait of Hormuz. That was their strategy. That was their ace in the hole, that they were going to block the strait, drive up oil and gas prices around the world, inflict economic punishment and pain on the West, on Europe, and on the United States, on our economies. And now the Iranian regime has come out and said they are going to be charging a toll. It's going to be a payment system that if you want to get your ships through the Strait of Hormuz, you got to pay. And they believe it's going to generate billions and billions of dollars in revenue every single month. And many of our allies are livid with us right now, especially Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. They say we didn't want this war. We warned everybody it was going to destabilize the region. And now we're going to have to pay an extortion fee, essentially, for our oil to get through the Strait of Hormuz, which is going to help the mullahs rebuild their country and rebuild their military and eventually their nuclear program down the road. And so they are urging President Trump to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So much so, and this broke just a couple minutes ago, the United Arab Emirates says we will join the fight against Iran. We are willing to join you militarily, send troops, send our ships to help clear the strait, but you cannot leave it closed. So there is that development. Furthermore, and then I want to go to the phone lines, I want to ask all of you, President Trump now says that the goal of Operation Epic Fury was to completely destroy, wipe out, and set back Iran's nuclear program. He says now he will not topple the Ayatollahs. They will remain intact. And but he's taken care of the nuclear threat for about the next, he believes, 15 years. And then it will be up to another administration should they try to rebuild or attain a nuclear weapon. And that administration will then have to do what he just did. Do you support this policy now of Trump declaring victory and essentially going home? And do you believe he met the objectives that he set out? Or do you feel disappointed that he did not do what many of you wanted him to do, which was to take Tehran and overthrow the Ayatollahs? And is Trump now trying to spin his way out of a war that obviously did not go the way he and the generals and Pete Hegseth and Israel believed it was going to go? The neocons who told him this would be over in 10 days, Lindsey Graham in particular, now have a lot to answer for. But my question to you, is this an acceptable result? 617, in other words, was the conflict worth it? 617-266-6868. Linda in Medford. You're going to kick us off, Linda. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning.
Hi, Linda.
Well, I might have a little different spin on this. If this war gets us out of NATO, it's worth every penny. It's worth it. Now, if we can find another war that gets us out of the UN, I'll be really happy. And we can make the UN building into something for the homeless veterans. And I think that would be a lot better service to us than the UN cocktail parties. So I'm pretty much a happy camper here.
That's funny. That is very funny. Linda, are you surprised that Italy, that was the one that really stuck in Trump's craw because he's got a great relationship with Giorgia Meloni. She is a conservative. She's kind of like, the Italian version of MAGA. And when she came out with that decision saying you will not use our military bases for any, operations regarding Operation Epic Fury, Trump said this was the mother of all betrayals. And the French let him down. The Germans let him down. The Spanish, obviously, they have a socialist government. They let him down. He really savages Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Britain, in his latest interview with that British newspaper, The Telegraph. Mm-hmm. Were you surprised at Italy? And do you think Trump is right? I take it you do. That now we should just pull out of NATO and end this. But were you surprised at the Italians?
Remember reading like a year ago or 2 years ago when this emigration started on some of the islands in the Mediterranean and on the Italian islands, the people were on the shoreline refusing to let them come on, telling them not to come on, and they went up into Italy. So I would think the people would be behind our being involved if that's the case. I don't understand why Europe has done this to us. But again, it's one more reason to get out of NATO.
Oh, I'm with you. Linda, I'm with you all the way. We got to get out. Enough. I mean, they're like a huge leech or parasite, and they're just bleeding us white. They really are. And Trump is right. When they need us, we're always there for them. Always. But now this was a test, as Trump put it. And were they going to be there for us? And they weren't. They weren't. None of them were. Literally, none of them were. Linda, thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868. And by the way, just to be clear, Trump rightly, and he said this, and even Rubio, they came out and said, we didn't ask you to send one soldier. We're not asking you to fight and die with us. What are we asking for? Can we use your bases? By the way, we pay for a lot of those bases, but let that go. Can we use your bases? Can you help us with a couple of minesweepers? Maybe, the British Navy, you have a couple of warships. Could you send a warship or two to help, clear the Strait of Hormuz and help, oil go through and the tankers and the cargo? And their answer was, you're on your own. Now, I'll tell you why. Linda said, well, why? Because this is what happens when your country is overrun with Muslim migrants. You have a massive fifth column now inside your own country. Let me tell you what's driving Giorgia Meloni. She's petrified of a Muslim uprising in her own country if Italy gets involved in this war. Macron, same thing. Keir Starmer, ditto. Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany, same thing. You have seething, large, hostile Muslim populations in all of your major cities by the millions. What millions? Tens and tens of millions. So they're worried that this could lead to massive blowback at home, massive terrorism, protests, basically a domestic uprising. And so forget it. They're not going to get involved in a Middle Eastern war. Never mind with a great power, a strong regional power like Iran that's calling now for a holy war against anyone who attacks them. So that's why Europe is sitting this out. So in a way, I understand where they're coming from. But sorry, I'm an American. I'm not a European. I'm looking at it from our point of view. And from my point of view is, and I'm just using Italy because they were the big ones who made the announcement yesterday, how much have we paid? The taxpayer has paid the huge, tremendous cost to protect Italy and the Italians going back how many decades that has been borne by the taxpayer? And now when we need you, we're talking just a couple of bases. We're not asking you to send one Italian sailor, one Italian soldier, nothing. And this is how you pay us back? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Do we get any benefit from being in NATO? Remarkably, and I'm not saying remarkably in a bad way, it's just this would have been unheard of 20 years ago, 30 years ago. President Trump now has come out and said no. Marco Rubio has come out, the Secretary of State, and said no. Trump now has said he is beyond seriously considering pulling the United States out of NATO. Rubio now says this relationship may not survive after the war with Iran is done. After Spain, Italy yesterday made the big announcement, but whether it's France, Britain, Germany, it doesn't matter. They are not allowing us to use their military bases, and they refuse to send warships or minesweepers to clear the Strait of Hormuz, or to use their bases, as I said, to for our planes and fighter jets to launch missions in Operation Epic Fury. And Trump basically said this was a test to see if you would stand by our side. Clearly you haven't. We're there for you. You're not there for us. NATO can't just be about us constantly protecting you on our dime. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. But for you, it's a one-way street. So Trump now says we may be pulling out of NATO. We shall see. But I want to ask all of you, do we get any benefit from being in NATO? A, yes. B, no. I'm a no all the way. I have been for many, many years. Hell no. Absolutely not. They need us. We certainly, hey, this war's shown one thing. We don't need them. and we certainly can't count on them. The one thing the Iran war has shown us, you can't count on the Europeans and NATO. You just can't. Anyway, that's my, if I was voting, that's what I would vote, but that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. We can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
How are you, Larry?
I'm peachy. Weather's great down here. I think I'm paying $1 less for gas than you.
What is it? I'm just curious. For regular unleaded, what is it, Larry, down there?
It just dropped 10 cents to $3.29 at my local store.
That's not bad.
No.
What was it? 405 where I went. It was $4.05, regular unleaded.
Now, on a side note, not trying to stray too far, but that is indicative of Massachusetts taxes versus the cost of oil.
Oh, yeah, no question.
Right. So let me ask you, help me here. I don't need a whole explanation. I think you can sum it up succinctly. What is Article 5 of NATO?
Well, basically, it's a collective security measure. An attack on one member is an attack on all. So basically, if any NATO member is attacked, any single one of them, every other country in that alliance is obligated to defend them militarily.
We hear them screaming from the rooftops that even though it'd be nearly not impossible, but impractical, that Putin would then invade or attack Poland or any of those places after Ukraine, even though they demonstrate for the last 4 years that they can barely contain Ukraine's fight, let alone go anywhere else. How many times have we heard we're going to be dragged into that because Putin is so evil?
Oh, we heard it, Larry. It was day and night. Nonstop. It was just Putin is the new Hitler. Today it's, the Donbass. Tomorrow it's Warsaw, and then Berlin, and then Paris, and Rome, and London. And they lied to us for 4 years. But the point is, every European capital kept saying over and over again, we fear Putin. We need the United States. We need NATO. And so who protected Ukraine? We did. Who armed Ukraine? We did. By the way, I don't want to get too sidetracked here, Larry. Do you know that President Trump, in the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, went to Zelensky and said, if you're willing to make concessions to the Russians to end the war, I will give you a direct security guarantee. The United States will guarantee the borders and security of Ukraine. That's how far we were willing to go. The Europeans weren't willing to go that far. But Trump said, I will even give you a security guarantee. And this is how the Europeans pay us back? As Rubio said, to his credit, he said, you guys are saying, well, we didn't ask for the war in Iran. Well, we didn't ask for the war in Ukraine. Never mind World War I, never mind World War II. I could go on and on. So the one time we need, we're not asking you to fight and die. We're not asking you to send your sons and daughters. You have a military base in southern Italy that we help pay for. You can't now let us use your one military base to fly our operations? You can't send us one minesweeper? You can't send us one lousy warship? So, okay, no. We get it. You see this as a one-way relationship. You're there to screw us and milk us. I get it. And you've milked us good. And now we're on our own. You go your way, we go our way. Now you deal with Putin. Don't come crying to us. So, Larry, I've been waiting for this now for I don't know how many decades, because it's been so clear to me that the Europeans have been using us and playing us. And we have been generous to a fault. And now we're starting to see what our generosity got us. Nothing. You know, it's like putting people on welfare. You know, like Bill in Sudbury. They never call and say thank you. They're always a bunch of ingrates. It's never enough. It's never good enough because they feel entitled. Well, the Europeans feel entitled. They think like what? We exist to protect them? Like what? We exist to spend money and our blood and treasure to defend them? Like what? It's a privilege for us to keep defending them? So, no. You're on your own. Bye. But sorry, Larry, keep going, my friend.
Right. You're helping me make my point. Article 5 should have been triggered as soon as Iran threw missiles into Turkey, because Turkey's a part of NATO. Now, I do believe, I know we differ on this. I do believe this was necessary on Trump's behalf to go into Iran. They've been a threat since I was a child. I was 9 years old when the mullahs took over, but I had two older brothers who were deep into their military careers when that all happened. So this has been affecting me personally for a decade, just like you said. So Turkey should have triggered Article 5 right off the bat. First term, Trump was imploring, especially the Germans, stop relying on Russian oil. It's going to bite you in the butt. They laughed at him. Where I was going with that, I'm not saying that he directly did this to flush out NATO, but I think he knew what was going to happen. They were going to balk at helping. And your first caller and you triggered it or talked about it. The Islamic State has pretty much taken over Europe. They can say, "Oh no, they're welcoming and all this," but you're right. They are afraid of an uprising. We went into Iran. We had 4 separate terrorist attacks here. So yeah, they're scared. And he's showing basically the world, and he's reminding Americans that, hey, we've been spending all this money to protect NATO. And like you said, we're not asking for boots on the ground. We're not even doing boots on the ground. They won't help. So every war, you want certain objectives met. I will argue that this one has met more objectives than the last several wars combined, not including World War II, just going back, right? A lot of the objectives, nothing's perfect, nothing's going to come off perfect, but I think he's gotten enough done. He said it wasn't going to be a forever war, out in about 6 to 8 weeks, and we're right on that timeline. But as a side thing, he's shown how feckless Europe is. He's shown, how long has Iran been holding those Middle Eastern countries hostage with those Strait of Hormuz? And they still don't want to get involved. Like you said, it's their problem. Our problem was a nuclear threat. Iran, they lied. They said they weren't going with missiles that can go more than 2,000 kilometers. They demonstrated that they had one that could go 4,000 kilometers. So we know they're full of crap, and anything they say, take with a grain of salt. He showed that he's compassionate, and he can come back and he can say, hey, I made the offers, and remember you were worried about the 15-point plan saying this is not good? I knew they weren't going to take it because of how radical they are. I think he knew they really weren't going to take it. And he just laid it out there and saying, look, I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm trying to give you some, trying to make some concessions here. You're just too radical to accept. So my hands are clean. We had an objective, but we had a side objectives that exposed how worthless NATO is and how worthless the European Union has become.
Oh, I think there's no question that they've been completely now exposed and flushed out. Look, Trump himself in the interview, it's a fascinating interview. And this is with the Daily Telegraph in Britain. And he said, look, I'll be honest. He goes, I had my suspicions about NATO for years. He goes, I'll tell you the truth. Privately, I kept saying to people, they're a paper tiger. They're not going to be there for us. And I kept saying, I said, you watch. If ever it's put to the test where we need something from them, after all these years of us giving to them, he goes, you watch. They will not, he goes, not one will come through for us. And it turned out to be true. So I think there's no question. Trump on NATO was not 1,000% correct. Look, my fear is this, Larry. The problem now is, and by the way, you're right, that 15-point plan, look, any rational Westerner, I don't care, any Western nation or people or country would have said, so let me get this straight. Our military has been decimated. Our nuclear program gone. Our ballistic missile program gone. Our neighbors despise us. Our country has been shattered. But they're going to let us keep a civilian nuclear program. Our regime stays in power. And they're going to lift all economic sanctions? That we've been sanctioned for the last 47 years. But they're going to lift all sanctions so we can return to the international community of nations, trade freely with the world, and have joint control over the Strait of Hormuz. You have to be crazy not to take that deal. I don't care. Name your European country. Name your Latin American country. Name your Asian country. I'm telling you the truth. They go, take it. What are you, nuts? Take it. Come on. We're almost snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. What do the Americans want? We just what? No nuclear weapons? No ballistic missiles? Stop funding terrorism? That's it? And we survive after getting destroyed in this war? And we can be on no sanctions? And we can rebuild our country? And we get joint control of the Strait of Hormuz? Son of a gun. Allah is good. Instead, no, it's the opposite. Allah, 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 Allah. Death to America, death to America, death to America. Okay, I don't know what else to tell you. You're stupid. You're medieval, you're primitive, you're stupid. You're beyond stupid. So, okay, I don't know what else to say. So Trump now says there's going to be no deal. I don't know how you can make a deal with these people. I think that's what we're starting to realize. So anyway, it is what it is. Look, I'm sure there's stuff we're going to hear tonight that has not been leaked to the media. So, and I'm dying to see what it is. But I think we've got pretty much the framework now. We're going to be leaving Iran in 2 to 3 weeks. The mullahs are going to remain in power. And the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain blocked. Now, my concern is if it remains blocked, the mullahs then can charge a tolling system. They'll keep their grip over the Strait of Hormuz, which is going to be a lot of cash for that regime. And they're going to be holding the world's oil supply hostage. And that's not good for the United States. And it's not good for the world. And honestly, the world is going to resent us for this. Because the world is going to say, to be fair, they're going to say, well, you guys bombed them, and now you're leaving us with the mess. And I'm telling you, the Gulf nations in particular, because they were lobbying Trump ferociously, saying, please don't do this. Don't bomb. You bomb Iran, you're going to destabilize the region, and you know who's going to get collateral damage? It's going to be us. So that's why they're now lobbying Trump, saying, look, we'll even join the fight, but you can't leave the Strait of Hormuz closed. Because that's death to us. And it's going to keep gas and oil prices very, very high. And you're giving now the mullahs a stranglehold over one of the most important choke points in the world. So, I think the mullahs can go to their people and say, look, we took everything the great Satan and the little Satan could throw at us. Everything. And we've survived. We're still standing. And now we control the Strait of Hormuz. So believe it or not, after taking this kind of a pounding, they will be able to go to their people and claim some kind of a victory. That's why, to me, Grace asked me yesterday, what do you think? I said, he's got to clear the Strait of Hormuz. He's got to. Yeah, to me, you clear the Strait of Hormuz, then you declare victory. But I get it. He's on a tight timeline. The polls are very bad in terms of the war. It's not popular. On the economy, his numbers are even lower. And he's looking at the midterms now, and he knows what's waiting for him if he loses. So I think that's the other thing. He put himself in a very tight box with the timeline. You know, basically, he gave himself 6 weeks. He may give himself 7 weeks, an extra week extension, but basically this war from start to finish will have been about a 6-week war. It is very, very hard to topple a regime like the Ayatollahs in 6 weeks. It's very hard. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. Derek in Brighton. Thanks for holding, Derek, and welcome.
I like your show.
Thank you, Derek.
My opinion on this is that I don't think he should have never gone in there to attack Iran in the first place. I mean, if these people were, what are the, where is it that they were? I don't know, days or I don't know how many weeks away from creating a nuclear weapon. What proof did he have that, they were, planning, creating a nuclear weapon? And if he asked NATO to go in there and help and they refuse, and, they had to go in there and bomb Iran's, military and their Air Force and what have you, and he doesn't have a plan for coming out. Trump, like you said, Trump could, claim some kind of victory, but if the Iranians or the leadership controls the Strait of Hormuz, like you said, they can go to their people and claim some kind of victory. Now, you didn't have an exit plan for pulling out of there, and I don't know what. Like you said, it doesn't look good for him in the midterm elections. What is he going to do? I mean, if gas prices and the economy keep faltering, if the midterms turn against them, Hakeem Jeffries becomes somehow Speaker of the House, and all they'll do is just attack Trump, want him to impeach him, and the last 2 years of his presidency would just will be for nothing. And one other thing, pulling out of NATO, because the Europeans haven't really done a whole lot to putting, some of their economic money into NATO. They can say, the Europeans could say, look, you started this war with Iran, bombing them for, 5-6 weeks or so. And now you want us to come in and clear the Strait of Hormuz? Get lost.
Derek, that's exactly what, Maloney almost said that in a speech. In other words, she said, you made the mess. No, you started the war. That's what she said. She said, you started the war. You bombed them. And now you want us to clean up your mess? That's exactly how she phrased it. And she said, no, we're not going to clean up your mess. You made the mess. You clean it up. That's literally, I'm giving you almost verbatim. That was the speech she delivered in the Italian parliament. So that's how many Europeans feel. So I hear where you're coming from. Derek, thank you very much for that call. I appreciate it. Wednesday, 7:20. You know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from President Trump speaking to reporters in the Oval Office yesterday when he was asked about the plans for his presidential library, which will be built in downtown Miami.
Eric posted a photo of what will be the Trump Presidential Library. It's a huge skyscraper.
In Miami.
Is that all a library? What else is going in?
No, well, it's a library. It's a museum or a library. It's a presidential, but I wouldn't start it till I'm out of office. I don't believe in building libraries or museums. It's really like the Barack Hussein Obama one in Chicago. In not a good location, and it's a very unattractive building that's seriously late and seriously over budget. I think you're going to see a great one here, and it'll go up on time, on budget. Best location in Miami. They say it's the best block in Miami, and the state worked with us.
Will people live in the floors?
No, it's going to be most likely a hotel. You know, this concept could be office, but it's most likely going to be a hotel with a beautiful building underneath and a 747 Air Force One in the lobby, which is going to be a trick.
Getting a plane in the lobby would be a hell of a trick. But there it is. He says it's going to be a hotel. Is he telling the truth or is he trolling?
No, I think he's telling the truth. I think
it's very on brand for him.
It's just, with him, it's always the best, the biggest. I mean, who else would turn a presidential library / museum into a hotel? And notice, the best property, the best location in Miami. I swear the guy cracks me up. And then the 747, I don't know how they're going to stick that in there, but he'll find a way. And notice, Mike, even with the presidential library, he finds a way to make money. You know what I mean? It's like, no, people are going to be staying. They're going to be paying top dollar.
Well, maybe after they build this skyscraper hotel library thing, they'll probably knock down other buildings around it and build a golf course around it.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I got to say, he always finds a way to make money. It's unbelievable. Really, I got to say, he really is a businessman at heart. Consummate businessman. So, no, I mean, I don't think he's trolling. Maybe a little. I know the libs are going crazy. A hotel? How dare you? Ah! But no, I think he's telling the truth. I think the guy, he's going for the gold. No. Well, there you go. Yeah, he built a prison. This guy's building a hotel. There's the difference in the two presidencies, Sandy. Okay, that's just me. I want to hear from you. President Trump says he's going to turn his presidential library into a hotel, a beautiful hotel in one of the best parts of Miami. A, is he telling the truth? B, is he just trolling to get under the skin and get on the nerves of the moonbats? I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. You can also vote via X, my handle there, at The Kuhner Report, at The Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Dave in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dave.
Jeff, I'll tell you, everything sounds good about the library, but how are you going to put a 747 in there?
He'll find a way, Dave.
Well, Jeff, with this and roll this away.
Exactly, especially with Trump. Dave, what do you make of this, my friend? He says the war is going to end definitively 2 to 3 weeks. He may not even reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and he'll be addressing the country tonight. He says the goal of the war was to prevent the mullahs from getting the nuclear bomb. He says their nuclear program has been utterly obliterated. Mission accomplished. What say you?
On a serious note, why is it we got all these countries we shout out to and help them out all the time, and at the same time, when we need a little bit of help just to get some of the edge off, nobody wants to do anything. And Jeff, especially Italy and all that, we've been backing them up for, like you said, from World War I, World War II, ever since the days of the Battle of the Bulge era. It's like, it's not right, Jeff. Basically, Jeff, let me give you a quotation from a movie from Kuhner and Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Well, I got to say, Dave, can you hold on? I'm up against the break, so I'm going to take you on the other side. Dave, you made the point, and I thought it was a very good point, that here, we've been there for Italy and all these other countries in Europe, going all the way back to World War I. And now when we need them, suddenly it's not their war. Well, and Giorgia Meloni, as I pointed out previously, the Prime Minister of Italy in the Italian Parliament said, basically speaking to Trump in the United States, you started this war with Iran, and now you want us to clean up your mess in the Strait of Hormuz? You clean up your mess. Okay, no, I understand their point of view. I get it. But, we didn't start the war in World War I. We didn't start the war in World War II. Our response wasn't, we could have easily said, hey, we didn't start the war. You clean up your mess. But we didn't do that, did we? And again and again and again, whenever the Europeans need us, we're there. I mentioned Ukraine. We could have said, hey, we didn't start that war. You guys, it's in your backyard. It's not our backyard. You clean up the mess. So this is what I don't like about the Europeans. All of them. Every single one of their governments. I can't stand that about them. They think that we owe it to them to defend and protect them to the cost of trillions of dollars borne by us, the taxpayer, the American taxpayer. And then when we ask them whether they agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. Let's just take it out of the diplomacy range. If I'm your friend or family member, and I've been bailing you out decade after decade after decade after decade, and I have spent a fortune protecting you and defending you, and now I get into a quarrel or a fight with somebody, and I say, hey, could you help me out a little bit? I don't expect you to turn around and say, well, to be honest, I don't really agree with what you did. Or I don't agree, I don't think you're right in this fight with with one of your neighbors. I'm like, are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you? Now, all of a sudden, when I'm asking you to, hey, you know what? I've been scratching your back for how long? Can you scratch mine a little bit here? I need your help. Suddenly now it's not your fight. Let me tell you what I would conclude. You're a false friend. When you need me, I'm always there for you, no matter what. When I need you, all of a sudden, no, it's not your quarrel. It's not your fight. Well, you know what? We're not friends. And you're not going to use me anymore. And honestly, I would look at myself and say, I got played. I think that, to me, we've got it all wrong. We're looking at it from a wrong pair of lens, or from a wrong perspective. We have to ask ourselves, why did we allow ourselves to be fleeced like this? We got played. We were not Uncle Sam. We were Uncle Sucker. And they humor us and they flatter us, the Europeans, and go, oh, you're the indispensable nation. Oh, we love you. Oh, my God, the way you protect us, you're the best. And they're just been flattering our ego. But in reality, what did we ever get for it? Nothing. And trillions, literally $20 trillion is what we spent on NATO. 20 trillion over the years. 20 trillion. We're $40 trillion in the hole. You think the Europeans are going to say, if things go very bad here financially, oh, you helped us out so much, we're going to give you some money. We're going to, lend you money or give you money. No. They're going to say, hey, you're on your own. So when we need help, we're on our own. But when you need help, oh, America, come on, America. So, no, I'm with Trump. Friendship is a two-way street. If it's only a one-way street, it's not a friendship. You're being used. Dave, am I right or am I wrong? What say you, my friend?
We're always there for everybody. Like you're saying, it's World War One. We've been there since everything ever started with these crazy wars that took place. The Battle of the Bulge, we were there. So Germany wouldn't do what they were trying to do. All the way back to them and everybody else, Jeff. And then it's like, if we need 10 cents, they're going to give us a penny? They won't even give us a penny. And Jeff, it's totally ridiculous. We're the ones being screwed all the time, Jeff. I mean, you know the old saying, you might as well just bend over. And it's like, that's how I see it. And it's not even right. And as far as this past war with Ukraine and everything, we know Biden started that whole thing. If Biden would just shut his mouth during the time, the Ukraine war wouldn't even been going on. And then we get Zelensky sucking us out of a bunch of money, and he's jerking it around everybody else over there and giving it away. Whoever, instead of giving it to the people that have got no place to even live anymore because of the stupid war in Ukraine that Biden started. And you see it on TV all the time with the commercials. These people got nowhere to go. People are starving. You got the Christian food fund over there trying to ask us for money all the time because nobody would do anything. And that's all because of what Biden did to Ukraine. The commercials are on TV every other hour, Jeff.
Oh, Dave, you're 1,000%, not 100. You're 1,000% correct. It's always money for Ukraine, more money for Ukraine. It doesn't end. And so I think, look, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to be the world's policeman? Because that's what it is, really. Is that what we want? Do we want to be the global cop? Is that what our founding fathers intended for this country? Is that what a republic should be involved in? I mean, and by the way, it's not even just NATO. We're on the hook for almost any. You look at the number of countries. We have to defend Japan. We have to defend South Korea. We have to defend these islands in the Pacific. We have to defend the Philippines. We're going to defend Taiwan in case they get into a war with China. We have to defend all of Europe. We have to defend Canada. I mean, I could just go on and on. We have security guarantees to over 100 countries around the world. 100 countries. How many people have security guarantees to us that will actually back them up? So you have to ask yourself, I mean, this is a recipe for perpetual war. And notice the politicians who make these deals, when Lindsey Graham runs off to Ukraine, or that clown Chris Murphy, or, Mark Warner, or all these other idiots that run off to Ukraine, notice they always want to send our sons and daughters. They never want to send theirs. The politicians, Chuck Schumer will never send his kids into war, but they'll send our kids into war. Lindsey Graham has no kids to send to war, but he's eager to send our kids to war. And as a country, we have to say enough is enough. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
Hey, Jeff. The one thing, I mean, you've got the war in Ukraine, you got the war in Iran, constant geopolitical issues. I've really been coming aware over time, Jeff, that there is a whole different lens through which we've got to go about determining what is right and what is wrong with all of this, because a lot of it is, okay, does it or does it not help Israel? Does it or does it not help this country? And all these geopolitical questions. That's completely the wrong lens through which to determine all of this. The lens we really need to be looking through to determine what is right or what is wrong is what does and what does not add value to our citizenship here in the United States as Americans. Now, with the Ukraine war, I think it's a no-brainer. There's absolutely nothing about it at all that adds to the value of our own citizenship in our own country as Americans. Matter of fact, there's a lot that actually devalues our citizenship. Now, you look at the 2024 presidential election. We all, when we voted to return President Trump to the White House, what did we vote for? We voted for peace. And we voted for no more forever wars. And we specifically voted for no more wars in the Middle East. That's what we voted for. And the problem is, I'm sorry, but this whole affair with Iran, it seems like we've got something that's been diametrically opposed to that.
Andy, can you do me a favor? Hang on, I'm up against a break. But you're basically, I want to flesh out, I don't want to cut you off, number one, and I want to just flesh out your point. Okay, President Trump now will address the nation tonight. It will be a televised national address at 9 p.m. Eastern. He is expected to announce that the war will be over in 2 to 3 weeks. We are leaving. He now believes we have achieved our primary military objective, which is the obliteration of Iran's nuclear program and its ability to get a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb. However, the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, and with it, 20% of the world's oil and natural gas is essentially now being prevented from going out to countries around the world. Gas prices are high. Oil is high. It may even trigger a global recession. Trump now says we will not clear the Strait of Hormuz. He's going to ask the Europeans, the Gulf nations, Asian countries, you rely on that oil. We don't. You want it, as he put it in the Truth Social yesterday, you go get it. So, do you agree with the president saying we've achieved our objective? The mullahs will stay in power, obviously, and they will now have control, at least temporarily, over the Strait of Hormuz, and they are already telling the world, get ready to pay. It's going to be a tolling system. You want to get a tanker through or your cargo or whatever it may be, you're going to have to pay. And Iran is expecting now to get billions of dollars every single month, and they are going to build up their war chest very quickly. They want to rebuild their country, but they also want to rebuild their military. 617-266-6868. I want to go back to Andy in Milford, but just very quickly, my friends, the best way to listen to the Kuhner Report is on the iHeartRadio app, and now we're launching something brand new. Kuhner's Talkback, tit for tat. Just look for the red microphone in the upper right corner of the app. Leave a message for me, for Sandy, for Mike. Agree, disagree, respond, react, anything. Leave your talkbacks anytime during the week. And every Monday in the final segment, as we did just a couple days ago, we will play the best ones on the air. So download the iHeart app, hit that red mic, and join Kuhner's Talkback, tit for tat. Okay, Andy, you were making the point that Trump campaigned and won the election in 2024 on a seminal promise of no new wars and especially no more wars in the Middle East. And you said we're looking at everything from the wrong lens. We need to start looking at things through a different lens. Please pick up where you left off, Andy.
Okay, Jeff. That different lens is okay. What is going to add value? to our citizenship in our own country as Americans. That's the lens through which we got to start looking at all of this. And, I mean, I did not agree with this war in Iran. And you were asking earlier in the program, was it worth it? I think in order to answer that question, will it eventually lead to a lasting peace in the Middle East? Should the answer to that question be yes, I think you can say yes, it was worth it. Now, could you make the case that a lasting peace in the Middle East would add value to our citizenship in our own country as Americans? Yes, I think you could make that case. But, I mean, that's the lens, Jeff, through which we've got to judge all of this. And remember, Jeff, the last presidential election, it wasn't just a win. It was a popular vote mandate. It was an electoral mandate. It was a mandate in terms of all the swing states being carried. And I think, Jeff, that President Trump needs to wrap up and get out of this before it becomes American boots on the ground. And, I mean, I know that not all of the options here are perfect, but if it becomes American boots on the ground, we're going to be there a while. And that's definitely not what we voted for. Now, Jeff, in the Ukraine war, you can remember just in President Trump's negotiations with Zelensky, there was one point where President Trump put something solid on the table, and he was like, take it or leave it with Zelensky. Yeah, he was going to walk away. That was going to be it. And what happened? Senator Lindsey Graham went going over there on a mission on his own, and he inserted himself, and the thing just dragged on. And this is the very important point, Jeff. None of us signed up for Senator Lindsey Graham to be running this country's foreign policy. But unfortunately, it appears in many respects that is what has happened here.
Well, Andy, I'm very happy you mentioned this because in private, Trump is fuming. This is now being widely reported. He is really teed off at Lindsey Graham because one of the people that really sold him hard on this war with Iran was Lindsey. And Lindsey Graham, as you know, he's a warmonger. I mean, I think he's crazy. I would be brutally honest with you. He's not right in the head. The way he talks about war, the way you can almost tell on his face, like he's getting off on it. And he always wants to send boots on the ground, our troops. The bigger the war, the better. He wants war with Russia. He wants war with China. He wants war with Iran. He wants war with Venezuela. He just wants war. He loved the war in Iraq. Him and McCain were saying we should be there 100 years. He loved the war in Afghanistan. And apparently he's been in the Situation Room. And apparently he's been in the Situation Room now so often that people in Trump's inner circle are saying, get this guy out of there. Because every time we try to give you an option that is not, boots on the ground or escalating the war into a wider potential regional war, he keeps shooting it down. And he keeps giving you false promises that this thing is going to be over tomorrow. So with Lindsey Graham, I'll tell you exactly what happened. Lindsey Graham, I'm just going now by the Wall Street Journal, and this was not refuted by the administration. And it certainly wasn't refuted by Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, before the war with Iran began, went to Israel along with General Jack Keane. He's a commentator on Fox, arch neoconservative. Along with this columnist for the Washington Post, he's a neocon. Frankly, he's a dry, boring writer. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, that he was actually involved in this. But Mark Thiessen, Okay, dry, boring. He's just a run-of-the-mill neocon, a former George W. Bush speechwriter, one of the big architects of the war in Iraq. So they went to Israel, and they said to Bibi Netanyahu, what is it going to take to blow the mullahs into smithereens? And so Bibi spoke to Lindsey Graham and to Keane and to Mark Thiessen. And they said, we've got to do a regime change war. And Lindsey Graham literally was coaching Netanyahu on how to sell the Iran operation to Trump, to effectively to manipulate Trump. Talk like this, don't talk like this. Mention this, but don't mention that. So Lindsey Graham was really the linchpin in all of this. Well, what did Lindsey Graham and Jack Keane and Mark Thiessen tell Trump? They said, this thing will be over in 10 days. You say 4 to 6 weeks, but you overpromise, you underpromise and you overdeliver. So you say 4 to 6 weeks, but we're telling you, Mr. President, you kick that door down in Iran and that whole regime is going to come crashing down. And so they said to him, trust us, we're telling you the mullahs are ripe to fall. Now, the generals around Trump, the Joint Chiefs, said to Trump, they're going to block the Strait of Hormuz. We've war gamed this now for 25 years. You attack Iran, they are going to block the Strait of Hormuz. Oil and gas is going to soar. And you're going to see gas prices explode. You're going to see the entire world economy go risk an inflation and a recession. So just be ready for this. Lindsey's answer was, along with that clown, Jack Keane, okay, General Jack Keane, was, don't you worry. We'll hit them so hard, so fast that they're going to cry uncle before they can even dare to block the Strait of Hormuz. So they promised the president a lightning war, a cakewalk with decisive, devastating air and missile and sea power, and that this would bring the Iranian ayatollahs to heel. And instead, it's turned into a quagmire because the Strait of Hormuz were blocked. The oil infrastructure in the surrounding Gulf nations have been hit hard. So oil is going up and up and up. And the mullahs had deeper roots and had more staying power than was originally told to the president. In fact, now, just so that you know, the Israeli media is reporting that Mossad has concluded, that Israeli intelligence has concluded that it'll take at least another year of fighting to overthrow the Ayatollahs, to overthrow the regime. That it's much more entrenched than they possibly thought before the war. So our intelligence agencies miscalculated again. And when Trump heard another year, he goes, what are you guys, crazy? No. We gave a 4 to 6 week timeline. I'm sticking to the 4-6 week timeline. The nuclear program is shattered. It's gone. It's been obliterated. And adios. I'm out of here. Because the Democrats are going to slaughter me in November. But just to know, the man I blame for what has happened over the last 4 or 5 weeks is Lindsey Graham. He was wrong again. Again. He told the Ukrainians, fight, the Russian army will collapse. That was 4 years ago. Okay, I can go on and on. He's the one that said Iraq would be a cakewalk. He's another one. Topple Saddam, and then freedom will just emerge in Iraq. He said the same thing to Trump. We'll have freedom in Iran. You just bomb 7 days, 10 days, and the people will go out onto the streets and they'll be chanting, Trump, 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 Trump. And of course, that didn't happen. So now the president is trying to extricate himself from a war that the warmongers sold him on. Now, Is Iran militarily dismantled and crippled? Yes. Was much of the regime decapitated? Yes. Their nuclear program, is it wiped out? No question. So the president can say, I have concrete victories here. But let's be honest. There is no regime change. They can spin it any way they want. The IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is still in power. The clerics are still running Iran. They're now in control of the Strait of Hormuz, which they were not before the war. And the region has been badly destabilized. And the problem, and I'm telling you, this is what I fear. If the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, and if the other Gulf nations, their oil infrastructure is not rebuilt quickly, because remember now, you're going to have a shortage of supply. Oil prices are going to stay high for months and months and months. It's going to stay at $100 a barrel for several months. That means you're going to have a resurgence in inflation. You're going to have high gas prices heading into the midterms. And all the Democrats have to say, and I know it's disingenuous, I know the Democrats caused all of this inflation, but they're going to turn around and say, Trump promised no new wars. He gave us a war. Trump said low gas prices. Gas prices are high. Trump said he would tame inflation. Inflation is now roaring back. Because the other problem with the Strait of Hormuz, just very quickly, a third of the world's fertilizer goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Our farmers, for example, rely on fertilizer to grow our food crops. That means food is already happening. Food is going to cost, it's going to be much more expensive. So it's not just higher prices at the pump, higher inflation, higher energy costs. You're going to be paying more for groceries and for food. Now, Trump knows this. I'm not saying anything that the president doesn't know. And that's why, and his people, led by Susie Wiles, are showing him poll after poll after poll. And the numbers are brutal. On this war, he's underwater. On the economy, which should be his strongest suit, he's way underwater. On inflation, he's underwater. I'm not saying whether objectively you should blame him or not. What I'm saying is he's looking at the polls and he's saying, we're looking at losing the House and now the Senate. And if I lose the House and the Senate, I'm going to be impeached and impeached and impeached and impeached until they practically drive me out of office. That's why he's been saying now for 2 weeks, the war's coming to an end. The war's coming to an end. The war's coming to an end. He wants to reassure the stock market, but he also wants to reassure his supporters, like, hey, hold on. It's going to relax. We're going to focus on domestic issues. Because if this thing keeps going on and on, it's going to be an absolute slaughter in November. And that's why he's now told his aides, I'm giving this 2 more weeks. And that's it. After 2 weeks, I'm out. If Israel wants to continue, that's their business. But as far as I'm concerned, all our forces are coming back. We're leaving Iran. Mission accomplished. So we'll see. Now, he can't lose the midterms. I've been saying this now since the war began. And he's going to have another problem. Mark my words. There's going to be an investigation. When this war is over, the American people are going to want to know what was the intelligence that made you and Lindsey Graham and everybody around you say that Iran was, quote unquote, an imminent threat. I know they're a threat. They've been a threat for 47 years. But that's not what imminent means. Imminent means now. Like now. We have to move now. Now. We can't wait. We can't wait another day. If they don't come up with credible evidence, I'm telling you, Trump's going to be in big trouble. Big trouble. And that's the last thing I want to see. So the neocons wanted this war, and they got their war. And I hope for them it's worth it. What I find incredible is now they're starting to turn on Trump. Now they're blaming him, saying you should go all the way for regime change. Basically, to hell with the midterms. If it takes another month, if it takes another 2 months, if it takes another 3 months, march into Tehran. Do whatever you got to do. And Trump is basically saying, no. I'm not going to become another George W. Bush. That's his fear now. And have a Middle East war consume my entire presidency. Because remember, it was the Iraq War that gave us Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in 2006. That's when Harry Reid became Senate Majority Leader, Pelosi became House Speaker, and George W. Bush's presidency was finished. Finished. And that literally paved the way for Obama in 2008. So Trump is not a stupid man. And that's why he's telling his people, he's told his aides, I don't care. I don't want to even hear it anymore. 2 more weeks and we're out. Steve in Boca Raton, Florida. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Jeff, I always tell you, you're number one. Now, I'm going to get to my point in a second, but, it's funny. They always hold Donald Trump to a different standard. Nobody investigated weapons of mass destruction with George Bush. This is not my point. Here's my point. NATO is yesterday's news. Let's look out 10 years from now. England is going to fall to the Muslims. They will have access to nuclear power. France will probably fall to the Muslims. They will have access to nuclear power. Here's my suggestion. The bigger issue we've got is that, and forgive me, the Muslims and the threat of Sharia law in this country and around the world. What needs to be done is we need to leave NATO, form a new alliance with Romania, with Poland, with Israel, with the Middle East countries, and last but not least, and let me make my point, Russia.
Steve, please, I'm not cutting you off. We're up against a break. Okay, let's go right back to Steve in Boca Raton, Florida. Steve, you didn't even finish your point, and I've already got people texting me saying they love what you're saying. So Steve now says it's time for the United States to pull out of NATO. I agree 1,000%. And NATO is yesterday. It's antiquated. It's outdated. And we need a new alliance system to deal with the realities of today, especially radical Islam. And Steve, I got to say, I know you're talking about a new alliance with Israel, Romania, Poland, some of these Eastern European countries, Russia, maybe ultimately. And that you look at Italy, you look at France, you look at Germany, you look at Britain. They have such massive Muslim populations now. France and Britain in particular have nuclear weapons. They have a nuclear arsenal. One day we could see the prospect of an Islamized France or an Islamized Britain being obviously a nuclear power with nuclear weapons. And that is an absolutely fascinating, it's a chilling point. It's a frightening point, but it's also, I think, a point that needs to be considered. Because you can tell Maloney, for example, and that leader in Spain, both of them are very worried about a massive Muslim backlash at home. And that's why they won't even give us the use of their bases for Operation Epic Fury. So, Steve, you're on a roll. Please pick up where you left off and tell us why you think Russia is so important in this new alliance. Go ahead, Steve.
Much, Jeff. Thank you very much, Jeff. Jeff, these countries are appeasers. And you know what happens to appeasers? They get run over. Our biggest enemy is not Russia, it's China. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Stalin was an ally of the United States, even though he was not a good person. He was instrumental in helping us defeat the Nazis. China is our biggest enemy. The Muslims are right there. We need to form these new alliances. We should throw a bone, build a credit with Putin. We should back out of Ukraine, piss off all of these European countries, let them go to hell, and make Putin realize that we can be his friend, economically, etc. We need to tie in with him. Okay, we tie in with him, that's going to create big problems for China and allow us, I don't believe he's a big fan of the Muslims. It'll allow us to deal with the European problem that's going to come down the road. That's all I have to say, and I'm receptive to anything you think about.
Well, Steve, I think it's fascinating. Let me just ask you this. I get the sense what you're saying is the real problem is not Europe. I think what you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It's really Western Europe, right? I think you're saying that Western Europe is now so inundated with Muslim migrants, millions, tens of millions. And France and Britain, as you said, are right. They're nuclear, they have nuclear weapons. They have their nuclear powers. That we have to look at the chilling possibility that one day the Muslims will have the bomb in Europe. But if you look at Eastern Europe, because they have not allowed Muslims to come in, their attitude is very different, whether it's Poland, you mentioned Romania, Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, you've got Croatia, Serbia, these other countries. So I think what you're saying is Eastern Europe, yes, Russia, potentially, yes. Israel, obviously, some other countries, but that Western Europe now is really no longer a friend or an ally of the United States, correct?
So Saudi Arabia and any Muslim country that wants to join that alliance as well, it's important you get them in the mix. And you're 100% right. It's inevitable. Look down the road 10, 20 years. They're going to be running England. They're going to have access to the bombs. You got to deal with China. You need Russia as an ally. Let's wake up, America. You need to make them an ally. And it's a simple fix. Get the hell out of Ukraine. Give them a credit. Let's begin negotiating. Jeff, I got to go. I got to play some golf in about 5 minutes.
Well, have a great game of golf, Steve. Thank you so much for that call. No, I listen. I think this is what Trump and Rubio and J.D. Vance are seeing. They're saying, no, we're trapped now. It's in a different time, in a different era that's now over. And, and we're seeing it. This is not the NATO of 40, 50, 60 years ago. There's no question. And that's why Trump gave that interview, and it's going to it's already reverberating all over the world, where, he openly said, I'm more than seriously considering, I'm just going to pull out of NATO. And, and Rubio as well now, obviously, and Trump is supporting him, saying, look, we're going to have to reassess this relationship after the war with Iran is over in 2 to 3 weeks. Because clearly you see it as a one-way street, and for us, no. We're done. The days of being Uncle Sucker are over. Just, forget it. It's just, we can't afford it. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me ask you, President Trump will address the country tonight. He's going to say the war will be over in 2 to 3 weeks. We're leaving no matter what. And it looks like he's going to say, we're not sure, but that's what it seems, that he is willing to leave the Strait of Hormuz blockaded and blocked. Okay, I want you to listen now to President Trump. He was in the Oval Office yesterday in one of the most important press conferences of the entire war. And he says, look, we're negotiating with the Iranians through an intermediary. It's really Pakistan. And he said, we've achieved our goal. No nuclear weapons. We've done it. And it'll be at least 15 years before we believe they can reconstitute a nuclear weapons program. And so he says, as far as I'm concerned, it's time for us to leave. And I've told everybody 2 more weeks, maybe a little bit more, but for the most part, this thing is going to be over and we're leaving Iran. Roll cut to B, Mike.
We're negotiating with them right now. They've been, again, we have had regime change. Now, regime change was not one of the things I had as a goal. I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job. And I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job. But we want to knock out every single thing they have. Now, it's possible that we'll make a deal before that, because we'll hit bridges, and we've hit some. We'll hit some bridges. Got a couple of nice bridges in mind. But if they come to the table, that'll be good. But it doesn't matter whether they come or not. We've set them back. It'll take 15 to 20 years for them to rebuild what we've done to them.
So I want to ask you, is this an acceptable result? I'm just curious. Is it mission accomplished? Or by leaving them in power and by leaving them, at least for now, in control of the Strait of Hormuz, which they're going to be charging a toll to every ship in every country, they're going to replenish their treasury billions of dollars every month. You haven't killed a snake. Now, it's true, you've kicked the can down the road, no question. You've pushed their nuclear program way into the future. That there's no doubt. But is this good enough? Do you believe we've won the war? Or is Trump trying to salvage victory from what was becoming a quagmire? 617-266-6868. And let me throw this log on the fire. Here's Marco Rubio on Fox asking what the benefit of the United States is in being in NATO after Italy, on top of Spain, announced yesterday we cannot use their military bases for any missions that we want to fly in Operation Epic Fury. Roll cut 12, Mike.
I've been one of the strongest defenders of NATO during my time as a United States Senator because I found great value in it. And it wasn't just about defending Europe. I said it also allowed us to have military bases in Europe that allowed us to project power into different parts of the world when our national security was threatened. If now we have reached a point where the NATO alliance means that we can't use those bases, that in fact that we can no longer use those bases to defend America's interests, then NATO is a one-way street. The NATO is simply about us having troops in Europe to defend Europe, but when we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region if we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases?
I agree. I mean, you had me at hello. Now, super quick. He then says, look, A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C. In other words, if we can't use your bases to project power, and it's all about being a one-way street and us protecting you, at the cost of trillions and trillions of dollars, well, roll cut 13, Mike.
I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, and he'll have to make it. We're going to finish the job here. As I said, we're very, very close to achieving our objectives on all of these things that I've outlined. But I do think, unfortunately, we are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose, or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight? I think these are very legitimate questions that we need to be asking, and this are going to have to be very carefully examined after this conflict.
Pull out, baby. Pull out. The country will be cheering. Leave these ingrate Europeans to themselves. Let them deal with Vladimir Putin. Okay? 617, just my opinion, 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Jim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to address a couple points. But before that, your wife, Grace, what a warrior. I believe she's true MAGA. Make America great again. When I heard her call last week, I was cheering the whole time. God bless her. That's all I can say. God bless
she's going to be on in 22 minutes, Jim, so. But anyway, keep going, my friend.
All righty. I got two things I want to address. One was the war where we're at now, the address tonight, and the other is the alliances. So the alliances, I was never a fan of NATO. I think it should have been dissolved. But I think this, because again, in 2022 in Istanbul, NATO pushed us into war with Ukraine, saying we could have solved it then and ended it there. To me, that was the biggest disappointment of that last administration. And this time, with the other alliance, which I think people don't want to talk much about, is the alliance with Israel. Israel did push us into this, along with Huckabee and Levin and obviously Lindsey Graham, and they're always there, the same players. So I don't agree with that alliance either. I believe in healthy trading relationships with countries. I believe in, cooperation, kind of like what China does in a way. Like they don't really get involved unless they have to. I believe in maybe defensive military alliances, but I don't believe in aggressive military alliance. So with NATO right now, do I think we should at least rework the framework? 100%. Dissolve it? Yeah, possibly. I don't know if now's the time. It's a very unstable world. I don't know what that looks like. As far as NATO helping us with this, I didn't like asking them to help. I mean, we are the most powerful military in the history of the world. If we couldn't close a 3-mile strait, I didn't want to ask anyone for that. I thought it looked bad. And I think because this is more of a war of aggression than a defensive war, maybe that's NATO's reasoning. And I'm personally under the impression I want to contain this war. I don't really want NATO involved. I don't want to expand it. And that kind of brings me to the first point about where we're at. Now, we've had negotiations before, and we ended up bombing Iran in the middle of negotiations. So I don't know if this is going to mean if he is going to pull out or if this is just we have a lot of ground troops that move to that region that usually means something. I don't know if that's a kind of maybe it's a tactic, to say this and then we'll send in our ground troops. But I think Trump, unfortunately, is in a position now he has two bad choices. One is either staying in, which would mean ground troops, which could go to far more escalation, which I worry about being nuclear, coming from Israel, because again, I think you're looking at a state the size of Israel. I mean, she's a state the size of New Jersey that's really getting bombed, and if it gets worse, then I could see that happening. And the other one is getting out. Now, getting out looks really bad too. It puts a lot of our allies in a predicament that, they trusted us. They're going to look to other alliances. They might look to China. They're already going to pay in yuan. I think it is Chinese currency with the oil. It enriches Iran. It gives them more than they have ever had before. So I don't really think this. I think if you're going to do it, you do it and you contain it, but you don't expand it. And as far as ending it, I mean, I'd love it to end and end in a good way. I just really don't see that happening. I think, and it's not even up to us anymore. I think Israel and Iran still have a part of this. I don't think either of them want to end it. I think Israel they know this is the time to do this. They have the support of this administration. They have the ear of the Lindsey Grahams and the Mark Levins and the Huckabees. They're on board, and unfortunately, Trump went with that side of the movement. I can't even call it the movement because I don't consider them MAGA. But so unfortunately, I think that's where we're at. And as far as
Jim, look, NATO, I think here's the thing, Jim. He's going to address the country tonight. So by going and putting a self-imposed timeline of another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if he sends in troops now, people are going to say, well, why? I mean, we're leaving in 2 to 3 weeks. Why would you escalate? And I think if he stays, so in other words, anything that prolongs the conflict, I think people are going to say, well, why? So I think Trump is he's signaling to the Israelis, and he's signaling to the Iranians, and he's signaling to the Europeans, this thing is going to be over. Okay, Dr. Grace is warming up in the bullpen. She'll be on in about 10 minutes. All right, this is breaking as I speak to you right now. Huge news. President Trump now has announced that the regime in Iran is now asking for a ceasefire with the United States. They want an end to hostilities. They want a ceasefire. President Trump has now said he will not sign one until the Strait of Hormuz has been opened and it is free and clear for passage for all the oil tankers and cargo and all the ships that want to go through that very vital passageway. So they are now asking for a ceasefire. Trump says you will not get one. You open the Strait of Hormuz, you will get one. So we shall see what happens. Trump also then said, until the Strait of Hormuz is opened, we will continue to bomb Iran into oblivion, or as Trump put it himself, he goes, or as they say, the Stone Ages. So basically, the bombing campaign will continue. They're going to continue with their our boot on the neck of the Ayatollahs, but the regime now is asking for a ceasefire. And Trump is basically saying, you'll get one if you open the Strait of Hormuz. And it's truly open, free, open navigation. So if the Ayatollahs have half a brain, open up the Strait of Hormuz, and this war is over. 617-266-6868. Mark in Milton. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Mark.
I have a much more pessimistic view of this, and it doesn't matter whether I was for the war or against the war, or whether I think NATO is worth continuing on. We are cutting and running a la Joe Biden in Afghanistan, and look what's going on there. These mullahs have an insane desire to kill every person in this world that does not believe the way that they do. They will come back with a vengeance. If I lived in Israel, I'd be buying plane tickets and land in Iceland, because that's the only place they're going to be safe. We're going to lose the midterms because of this, another cut and run. So you can kiss goodbye the dome over the Iron Dome for the United States. The Ayatollahs will rebuild, and they'll. Look, why would we believe any timeline that we've heard? They're not 20 years out. In 3 or 4 years, they're going to be back at it. And the United States will be target number one, because they're not going to forget. These people don't forget. They haven't forgotten since the Crusades, for God's sake. If Trump doesn't, he started it, and I understand exactly why the Europeans don't want to get involved, because, yes, their Muslim populations will revolt. Trump knew all of this. I'm a triple Trumper, and I'm so disgusted that he has now given away the midterms. JD better be putting his resume together, because there's no way in hell he's getting elected. There will be no Iron Dome, and Iran will rise again.
Mark, what do you say? I hear you, and very powerful, I have to say, very powerfully argued. Mark, I just want to ask you this, to play devil's advocate. That's, and I think just would be Trump's counter argument. He'd say, look, Mark, I hear you, but, if I put ground troops in, the American public will revolt against me. So I can only do what is possible. And what is possible is I have obliterated their nuclear program for a generation. We have hit so many targets. We've wiped out their facilities. We've hit their ballistic missile stockpiles. Their Navy no longer exists. They have no Air Force. They have been militarily dismantled and decimated. That, Iran may rise again, but that's going to be for another president to settle, maybe 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is. And we've accomplished all we could possibly accomplish. In other words, and I needed the Iranian people to rise up, and the Iranian people didn't rise up for whatever reason. Whether we should blame them or not, that's not the issue. The point is, I wanted them to rise up. If they rose up, we would have the regime toppled, but they didn't. And so I went as far and I did as much as I could possibly do What do you say to that argument?
I say, unfortunately, it's not enough, because I have 2 grandchildren going to be born in June and July this year. They'll be 15 in that 15 years that you just brought up. I'm sorry, Donald Trump started this. If he didn't realize that if he didn't finish it, I don't see how this is any different than pulling out of Afghanistan the way we did. Other than, I mean, yes. And how about the service people that we've lost already? That is just in vain yet again. The United States has a reputation for cutting and running as soon as things don't start going their way. I don't understand why the United States can't open up the Strait of Hormuz. Why can't we? We're so powerful. I mean, that's all I'm hearing is how great we're doing. Why can't we just do it?
Well, it's going to take time. It'll take more than 2 weeks, and we're going to suffer some losses because I'm just giving you what the generals are telling Trump. The Iranians have drones. They have these shoulder-fired missiles, these anti-ship missiles, which are very mobile. So it's going to put our sailors at risk. And basically, Trump is, worried we're going to have casualties and we're going to take some damage. And, it's going to take more than 2 weeks. And he wants this war to be over because he's looking at the price of gas, the price of oil, the economy, inflation. He's looking at the polls. And he's basically saying, there's only so much only so much political capital I can expend. And if we have to do the Strait of Hormuz by ourselves, this is going to prolong things for at least another month, maybe even another 6 weeks, with potential casualties. That's the counter argument. What say you, Mark?
I am absolutely flabbergasted that Trump could have been brought into this without knowing in advance that this was going to happen. I do not lightly. I was against this war, but like I led off with my call, it doesn't matter whether we were for it or against it. It doesn't matter about NATO. It matters where we are right now. That's the only thing that matters. And where we are right now is about to accede, and you are 1,000% correct, as you like to say, that they are going to build this up as a huge victory over big and little Satan. And good luck to any Iranian dissidents, even a student who might have been at a protest. We think 40,000 people were killed? Within a year from now, we're going to hear of mass graves in Iran. It is going to be a bloodbath, and that blood will continue to flow for years and years and years. And I'm sorry that Donald Trump is in this position, but Donald Trump put himself in this position because he listened to people like Lindsey Graham. I don't know what his advisors are like, but this was folly from the beginning if they thought they could go in and do it this quickly and accomplish what needed to be accomplished. These mullahs are going to come back, like I said, with a vengeance. And we, on this continent, will eventually pay for it very, very dearly. And people will be asking in the future, just like we asked of George Bush, why didn't he go all the way?
Mark, thank you very, very much for that call. So there you hear it. Mark says it's a mistake. Trump is making a mistake. That if, in for a penny, in for a pound. You leave the mullahs in power now, wounded, battered, but defiant. All you're doing now is enrage them, and almost they're going to now redouble, triple double their efforts to get nuclear weapons and the bomb by leaving them intact. Now, let me ask all of you, and then I want to go to Grace. She's on the line. But I want to ask all of you. This is why, to me, the Strait of Hormuz has to be reopened. You have to end the blockade. Why? Because if you don't, then the mullahs can charge a fee, that toll system that they want to place on all those ships going through. and, basically extort, like an extortion racket, like the mob. And they can replenish their treasury to the tune of, we're talking tens and tens of billions of dollars every year. And that's when they can start, buying more weapons again, supporting terrorists, obviously pursuing a nuclear program. So, yeah, Trump is hoping, anticipating 15, 20 years. But what if it's not 15, 20 years? In other words, all of this, and then we just kick the can down the road for maybe, one administration or two administrations. So, in the end, was it worth it? That's the question I have. 617-266-6868. Now, look, Trump is going to make the argument, and I'm going to play the cut to Grace. I want to get her reaction, that the mullahs were 2 weeks away from the bomb, that they were going to get 9, 10, 11 bombs in 2 weeks, and that had he not acted, then we wouldn't be here right now. That, you would see the Middle East potentially now with a mushroom cloud, maybe even parts of Europe in a mushroom cloud, that the mullahs then could have used nuclear blackmail and potentially used a nuclear attack on on Israel or on their neighbors or on Europe. So that basically his argument is, look, they were 2 weeks away from the bomb. I saved the Middle East, I saved Europe, and in some ways I saved the world from World War III. And is that argument, A, do you agree with it? And will that persuade the American people that it was worth it? 617-266-6868. Okay, joining me now, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto, my better half, my wonderful wife, and I always say it because it's true, I definitely married up. Grace, Trump will address the nation tonight. He now says we'll be leaving Iran in about 2 to 3 weeks. And if the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, he's told the Gulf nations, the Europeans, it's your oil, you go and get it. What say you?
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me on. So first off, at this point, Jeff, all the options on the table are bad. This is now Operation Cut Your Losses. And what I would be advising the president is go back to basics, go back to the promises that you made to the people. So what he needs to do is, there's no question that he has to clear the straits, because the fact that the straits are blocked impacts the cost of goods around the world, and it's not good for us. So it's in our interest. He now has to clear the straits. He doesn't have a choice, really, in that. In addition, Jeff, I would tell him, stop giving a timeline. He already told us 4 to 6 weeks, and that we were ahead of schedule, meaning that everything should have ended like yesterday, and that's not accurate. So he has to stop giving a timeline, because it's obvious that events, many, many events now, are beyond his control. And the more he tries to give a timeline, the more he puts in jeopardy his reputation as a straight shooter and as somebody competent. So there's a lot at stake right now, and he's got to go back to basics in order to make sure that he can preserve his reputation as a straight shooter and as somebody competent. So you got to clear the straits, accept that you're cutting your losses, stop overselling what you did. This is not regime change. This is not a huge victory. At best, this is, again, you slow down the mullahs a little bit. That's all this is. And just come home, focus on the home front, no more foreign policy, and unite the movement. That's all he can do right now. This is Operation Cut Your Losses.
Italy, Spain, France, Britain don't want to help us with the Strait of Hormuz. Italy yesterday, and it was a surprise because Giorgia Meloni is a conservative. She's actually a Trump supporter, but she came out and said, you will not be allowed to use our military bases to fly missions or your fighter jets for Operation Epic Fury. President Trump now, Marco Rubio are saying maybe it's time for us to pull out of NATO. We're done. When they need us, we're there. When we need them, they're nowhere. What say you?
Jeff, this is an erroneous argument. Look, The president has just dealt with a major, major setback. The Supreme Court told him that his trade deals were essentially illegal. So he needs the Europeans to stay in the trade deals. And remember, he's been playing hardball with them ever since he got into the presidency on trade and on trying to take over Greenland. So, you know what? They are now telling him, you're playing hardball with us, we're going to play hardball with you. And we still do need the Europeans because we want them to stay in these trade deals. So they have more leverage over us than everybody is assuming. In addition, we just don't want to focus on NATO right now, Jeff. This is very discouraging to the average American that is pumping gas at $4 a gallon and more. For God's sakes, we voted for him to focus on America in the home front. So just go back to basics, please. We don't even want to discuss this right now. It's too much. And that's one of the problems with the presidency. He needs to just go back to a few simple goals and get them done.
Grace, I want to play a cut, and I want to get your reaction. This is President Trump, because now he said, look, their nuclear program has been obliterated. Their ballistic missile program has been set back a generation. Basically, now I have defanged the Ayatollahs. And so that's a huge military win for the United States. And then when pressed by a reporter, listen to what Trump says about, whether it's worth the short-term cost and higher gas or oil prices, or the stock market now is taking a bit of a beating. Listen to what the president said. Roll cut 3A, Mike.
It's amazing what we've done. We had to make a little detour. So when the stock market broke all records just a few weeks ago, when it hit 50,000 on the Dow, 7,000 on the S&P, I said to the American people, it's time that we have to make a little detour because we have a madman that wants a nuclear weapon. And if we didn't knock him out with a B-2 bomber, we would have a nuclear weapon right now. It would have been used before today. And you may not be standing there asking that question, okay?
So basically, the Ayatollah was a madman. They were a week, maybe 2 weeks away from a bomb, potentially 8, 9, 10 bombs. Had he not acted, they would have used a nuclear weapon against Israel or against one of their neighbors or Rome or Paris or a country in Europe. And we'd be looking at World War III. That this was an imminent threat that needed to be dealt with immediately. And that the president essentially saved not just the United States, but the world. What say you?
Well, the problem is his own intelligence officials, like Ratcliffe, like Tulsi Gabbard, did not confirm this. So he started this with a crisis of credibility. And he continues in the crisis of credibility the more he speaks. This is not a little detour. 13 American service members are dead. 300 are wounded. This is a war. And the more he talks, he's in quicksand right now. That's why I would say stop talking, stop giving a timeline, stop overselling, because he's harming his reputation, a reputation that, he worked hard to earn as somebody who is competent, as somebody who tells the truth. And right now, every other day, he's making contradictory statements. He did ask for unconditional surrender. He's not getting that. He did want regime change. He didn't get that. He did want the mullahs out. He's not getting that. Just stop talking, because we're not stupid. We follow the news and we listen to his words, and we're following the truth home, and unfortunately the truth is not going home right now, Jeff.
Okay, but we have a minute left. Did Iran, in your view, pose an imminent threat? Were they several weeks away from a bomb? And by acting, did Trump save the region and maybe even the world from a potential nuclear power that could either blackmail the world or actually launch a nuclear attack?
No, they were not, because if they were, every intelligence organization in Europe would have been the first in line to join him in the crusade, and they all knew that it wasn't true. Our own intelligence knew that it wasn't true. The fact is, as I said from the beginning, he got roped in by the neocons who just wanted to hammer Iran, and his foreign policy has been hijacked by them. And that's why he's in quicksand, because he broke a key promise to the American people not to govern, not to rule as a neocon. And he has been acting as such in foreign policy. That's his problem right now, and that's why his base is slowly fracturing. And I give you so much credit, Jeff, because you're one of the few hosts in America that is working very, very hard to keep both sides in line. But we need him to go back to his promises, go back
to what got him elected. I hear you. Dr. Grace, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but we're literally right up against it. As always, very interesting, fascinating analysis. Okay, President Trump will be addressing, as I said, all morning, the nation tonight. It will be a televised address straight from the Oval Office at 9 p.m. He now has told everyone that Iran, the regime, whatever, the remnants of the regime, have now asked for a ceasefire. President Trump says there will be no end to the hostilities, no ceasefire, until the regime reopens the Strait of Hormuz. If they do that, yes, there will be a ceasefire. Now, no matter what, President Trump says within about 2 weeks, give or take a few days, the war with Iran will be over. He's declaring victory. We've only had one goal, he said, and that was to end their nuclear weapons program. And we have ended it, or we're in the process of completely finishing it off. And he says it'll take about another 2 weeks. But he said by the time this thing is over, Iran will not be able to reconstitute their nuclear weapons or nuclear program for at least 15 to 20 years. So my question to you, what do you make of these new developments? Was the war worth it? And President Trump, will he go down in history as the great liberator or as someone who did not see this war through to the end? 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Eddie in Charlestown. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Eddie.
Two things I'd like to say. Number one, not too long ago, didn't we take out a dictator in Venezuela? Where's all that oil going? The administration should be going to Venezuela and say, we gave you a better life by removing a dictator. Let's make a deal here. Give us some oil at a bargain price. That will relieve the pressure on the home front at the gas pumps. That's the first thing. Venezuela is more productive than the Middle East. Number two, NATO hasn't been with us for 45 years since I've been over there in the Middle East 45 years ago, okay? When I was over there, we got no help 45 years ago. We're getting no help now. It's about time we get out. We wasted a lot of money. And let's not forget about, no one's talking about the United Nations. The United Nations was built on to deal with with countries that are threatening the world's security. Where are they? Everybody's sitting on their butts doing nothing.
Eddie, that is a great point. That is a really good point. In fact, I don't want to get too inside baseball on this, but the United Arab Emirates, I mentioned this briefly earlier, they're now telling Trump, and I think Saudi Arabia is going to join in. I think Kuwait and Bahrain and Qatar, they're lobbying the president saying, no, please don't leave without unblocking the Strait of Hormuz. And United Arab Emirates are now saying, we're going to join the war. We'll join the war. He goes, well, we'll send our ships, we'll send our fighters. You have to open up the Strait of Hormuz because then we're going to be blackmailed by the Iranians. And they're basically, it's like paying off a mobster. They're going to be, charging a cut for every cargo of oil or ship of oil or tanker that we send out. He goes, this is going to kill us financially. So they're saying, no, please. But the point is, the UAE is now going to the UN. And I think they have a very strong, I think they have almost an impeccable argument. Their argument is, aren't you guys supposed to guarantee the freedom of the seas? Freedom of navigation? Like, here you have, whatever you think of the war, the mullahs have mined and blocked the Strait of Hormuz. And if you try to get through, unless you pay them off, they're shooting missiles at tankers and oil cargo. Like, they're preventing ships from going through. The whole world should be united in unblocking the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, to the UN, your job is collective security. Well, at least do your job. And at a minimum, pass a resolution condemning Iran and demanding that they open up the Strait of Hormuz. And to your point, Eddie, all they're doing is sitting on their rear end. The UN is doing nothing. Nothing. And so I think that's why Trump's attitude is, listen, we're not going to do everything. No. To the Asians and the Europeans and the Gulf nations, you need the Strait of Hormuz a hell of a lot more than we do. You open up the Strait of Hormuz. So that's where we are right now, Eddie. Eddie, thank you very much for that call. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Call. You know, about 35 years ago, a group of us went to St. Martin's, and you got the Dutch side and the French side. We stayed on the Dutch side. We had a great time. But one day we decided to go to the French side. Biggest mistake of the trip. We went to the French side, and we went in this one cafe. It was like they didn't want us in the cafe. And they tried to cheat us on the tab. They were really rude to us. Then we went. They have beautiful beaches there, so we went to the beach. And never saw a more disgusting sight. All these old people had a stitch of clothing on. We went into this one shop. The girls wanted to go into the shops. There's a lady in there working in the store, not a bit of clothing on. These people are sick. I'm sorry. I just don't understand the French people. After all we did for them in World War II, I mean, it's just amazing.
Bob, can you do me a favor? I'm so with you. The ingrates. Bob obviously is disgusted with the way the Europeans have been treating us lately. I don't blame him. He said he went to St. Martin's, went to the Dutch side of the island, loved it. Then he went to the French side. They were rude. They tried to rip him and his family off when they wanted to get a bite to eat. And nudists everywhere. Everywhere. And so he says, I don't know what's wrong with these people. But he finds them disgusting. Those were Bob's exact words. Bob, what do you make now? It's the Italians, the Spanish, the French, the Brits, the Germans. Basically, everybody's giving us the middle finger, Bob. They don't want us to use their bases. They don't want us to use overflights. They don't want to send in any minesweepers. They don't want to help us clear the Strait of Hormuz. They want us to protect them, but they don't seem to be there for us, Bob. What say you?
A long time ago, I said that they should take the NATO building in New York and turn it into a Trump hotel because it's worthless what it is there right now. What we spend on that building and the people, what they say inside of that building, is disgusting. The Europeans, for example, they seem like they have no use for us anymore.
Well, they need us to protect them. You know, they like our money and our missiles, Bob, but they don't want to do anything for us. See, they all they want is for us to continue to protect them. But when we need them, suddenly not so much, Bob. You know, Bob, have you ever had a friend, and I put friend in air quotes, every time you went out, you had to pick up the tab? Every time. It doesn't, never once, even if you're having a tuna sandwich, does that person say, you know what, Bob, this time it's on me. No. Every freaking time you got to pick up the tab. Have you ever had a friend like that, Bob?
Oh, never. Never, never. If I did, they wouldn't be friends much longer.
Well, that's the Europeans. I'm talking about NATO in terms of the NATO, not individually, but I mean their governments. We always pick up the tab, Bob. Always. And to me, that's not a friend. That's a user. Bob, thank you so much for that call. Joe in Beverly, thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Kuhner, man, how you doing this morning?
Very good. How are you, Joe?
Not too bad. I'm just getting a little tired of, people, you're not in the Situation Room. You're not. Grace isn't. Our audience isn't. You got to trust in Trump just a little bit. Every time he does something, you put him under a microscope. I would say let it play out, and if it's a disaster, then we can panic. But let Trump do his job, because every time he steps to the bat, in the batter's box, he hits a home run. So I would say everybody just relax a little bit and see how it plays out. Because Trump, you remember, he's not only playing three-dimensional chess, he's playing four-dimensional. What do you think of that, Jeff?
Well, Joe, look, to me, he's one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. I think there's no question. I thought his first term was magnificent until obviously the last year, COVID derailed so much of it. But and then even that first, his first year. I'm dying to get to this story. I mean, you look at the crime numbers, the homicide numbers. I could go on and on. These are numbers, Joe. Literally, we haven't seen numbers like this in over 100 years. 100 years. And some of his executive orders have been absolutely fantastic. So there's so much in this administration that I think has been so good for the country. And look, we're going to have to see. Basically, we'll know in the next 2 or 3 weeks. All we can do is react to events in real time. And so this is a huge story, and, we're talking about it. Joe, my question to you, and I think this is the question for people who supported the war. Trump now has said, my goal was never regime change. My goal was to make sure that Iran would never develop a nuclear weapon again. And I thought, I believed there was an imminent threat, according to Trump. They were very close to the bomb. If they had it, they would have used it, or at a minimum blackmailed the world. And so I did what I had to do. The fact that there will not be regime change, and maybe even the possibility that the Strait of Hormuz will be closed. We'll see. I mean, it's still 2 or 3 weeks to go. For you, is that a victory? Does that justify the war? And does that justify Trump's decision? Or, because there are many who are texting me who are saying they wish he would go all the way, that he shouldn't be leaving the mullahs in power, and that this is a huge missed opportunity on his part. So they support him and the war. They just feel that he's stopping short. What say you?
Well, the thing is, we don't know yet, because Trump, he says one thing on the world stage, and he'll turn around and do something completely different, because you can't show your hand to the world, of what you're going to do. We don't know yet what is going to happen, because, loose lips sink ships. And another thing is that, we've lost, 13 members? God love them, and I pray for them. But my father was on Omaha Beach. How many soldiers do you think they lost in the first minute?
Oh, that was a slaughter. Oh, you're right. I mean, the ocean was red with blood.
Not only that.
That's how many? Thousands. I mean, there were thousands. And it wasn't just American boys. It was Canadian boys and British boys. And they were just cut down to ribbons, cut down to pieces. And so, anyway, keep going, Joe. You're on a roll.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, the military, everybody is joining, okay? Because they have a president that's going to win the objective, okay? I mean, when you sign up for the military, there's a good chance that you're going to go to war and die. And those patriots, God love those patriots, men and women, that are willing to lay down our life. But that's part of the game, Jeff, in the world. You can't say, oh, we're going to do this and not have casualties. 13. I mean, we lost 13 in Afghanistan for no reason. They had the snipers, and they wouldn't take them out. So that was all little blowback, and then it's all swept under the rug. America, with the Republican, you want to know why the Republicans battle each other? Because we battle. You've got to trust in the commander-in-chief. And I do. And Trump has proven to me that he's been on the money every time. What say you, Jeff?
Joe, thank you very much for that call. I really, really appreciate it. All right, Joe says, look, there's still 2 weeks left to go. Trump is the master of the feint. Just because he says one thing doesn't mean he won't do something else. He wants to keep the mullahs off balance. It's not over till it's over. And you have no idea. Trump may unblock the Strait of Hormuz himself. They may launch a targeted ground operation to take Karg Island, or maybe even make a move to overthrow the Ayatollahs. So he says he'll address the nation tonight, but you don't know with Trump where the next punch is going to come from. So until this war is completely over, we don't have the right to judge Trump on whether this has been a good war or a bad war. Agree, disagree. Chuck in East Boston. Thanks for holding, Chuck, and welcome.
Trump supporter. I just want to ask you, like Trump said a long time ago, we have all the oil we have right here. So why is the gas prices $5-6 a gallon in California high here? And if we have all the oil here, and then, like you said, like a week or two, they have nothing left. So what's the point of staying there besides, having Hormuz protected?
Well, take away the issue of Hormuz, just, take that off the table. I think that's ultimately, this is Trump's point. He goes, well, how much more you want me to hit him? I mean, it's sort of, how do I say this? It's like, and Chuck, please hang on, okay? Because I'm up against the break, but I want to come back to you. Trump's argument is, and it's a very strong argument, he's like, well, what am I going to do? Just keep bombing things over and over again once they've been destroyed? Okay, let's go right back to Chuck in East Boston. He's a Trump supporter all the way. Chuck, I think, look, this is what I think Trump is dealing with, and I really sympathize with him. You're dealing with a fanatical regime that, as you rightly put it, Chuck, what is there left to bomb? I mean, now it's getting to the point, and Trump doesn't want to do it, which is, what do you want to blow up? Their desalination plants so they can't even have access to clean water? Blow up their electric plants? Destroy their electricity grid? So what, people go without power? I mean, the point is you want to help the Iranian people, not make their life even worse. And the mullahs just don't care. They just, no matter how much devastation and misery you inflict upon the country, they just don't care. And so, in a way, you're dealing with such a fanatical, irrational group of leaders. In fact, how do I say it? It's not even, it's more than just savage and fanatical and irrational. Like, many of them want to die. The greatest thing is to die as a martyr. So it's almost like, yeah, the Americans are bombing us. It's almost like, really great. Yeah. Did he kill you? Did he kill you? Because I want him to kill me. Because then you go to, paradise and 72 virgins and, you die the most glorious death possible. So there's a certain point where the president says, look, I'm just not going to inflict punishment for the sake of punishment. And look, I think there's no question, Chuck. I underestimated it. Trump underestimated it. The Israelis underestimated it. Our intelligence underestimated it. We underestimated the resilience of the regime because we all thought, again, as rational people, there can't be more than 10, 15% support. I mean, who else outside of the most hardline fanatic would support people like this? It does seem that they had broader support, not a majority, no, but much broader and deeper support than anybody thought. And so the calculation was, you hit them, and this regime will collapse like a house of cards, and people will rise up. And what our intelligence was telling us, and Israeli intelligence as well, is they got a lot more support, especially in the western provinces of the country, in the rural areas, than, we looked at the middle class areas of Tehran and some of the big cities. And they're more cosmopolitan, they're more worldly, they're more educated. And we thought that's the Iranian people. Yeah, it's part of the Iranian people. But there's another part. And they back the Ayatollahs to the end. And so if you're going to do a war to dislodge them, you need a lot more time. You need a lot more time. And that's the one thing Trump doesn't have. And that's why he's sticking to his 4 to 6 week timeline. I think, honestly, Chuck, if he didn't have the midterms breathing down his neck and how crucial the midterms are for his very, I would argue, not just political survival, but maybe even physical survival, I think he would be willing to give this many more months and really soften up the regime. But he's got to pivot, and he's got to pivot quick, because the higher gas prices stay, the worse it is for him, and the worse it is for the economy, and the worse it is for the midterms. A final word to you, Chuck.
Yeah, well, we should take Venezuela oil, because there's no point. I mean, we have all the oil here, like you said. So why are the gas prices so high?
Chuck, the reason is we export a lot of our oil. We sell it. And it's not like you just sell it like at a bazaar, like at a flea market or something. There are long-term contracts, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. So it's not, I know in theory, you're right. Look, we have the oil and we just use it for ourselves, but we actually sell a lot of our oil. So we're tied to the international market, whether we like it or not. So if the price goes up internationally, the price goes up for us. If we just used our oil for us, then who cares? We could be insulated. They could go up, but it doesn't matter. We have enough oil for ourselves. But we export and sell a lot of our oil. And that's why, if crude goes to $100 a barrel, we feel it just like everybody else does. Final word to you, Chuck.
We should take Venezuela oil, and you know how we always liberate everybody else like Kuwait? What's in it for us, Jeff? We always help everybody. And what's in it for us? Nothing. We don't even get $1 a gallon of gas anymore. We help the world. There's nothing for us. Why? There's nothing for us. Get a bunch of Iranian people to call in. They'll tell you how they feel. There's nothing for us, Jeff. It's a one-way street. What's in it for us? The United States? Nothing. We help everybody. You know what? Screw everybody. Screw NATO. Pull out. There's nothing for us. What's in it for us? Nothing.
I'm with you. Chuck, I'm with you all the way. All the way. Cal, thank you for that call. Cal in Newburyport. I hate to do this to you, Cal. 1 minute, go.
Hi, Jeff. Basically, Jeff, I'm really upset about thinking that our military, the brightest, the smartest, the most sophisticated.
Mike, what did you do, Mike? Mike, you cut her off? I need you to complain. No, Kuhner's tit for tat. Can you please call in